This summer we didn't know if we were going to be here or not. And since we're here, I'm determined we shall last 2 more seasons so we can welcome in the 21st century. I wanted to explain one thing about the mailing that you received. I don't think anyone in this room received a mailing with the correct first and last name. The last name and the address were correct, and I've decided this is the post office's way of joining in our facade. Behind every performance that you see, whether it's a group our size or the Dallas Symphony, there are always many, many people behind the scenes that make it happen. We all know this. There's one person that has kept this group going, and I must honor him this evening, and I hope I don't embarrass him, but this man has really pulled us through. Last June, we weren't sure we had a board. We weren't sure we had any funds. We weren't sure we had anything. And this man, Russ Horn, called a meeting. That was on June 27th. Well, a few people showed up and were very enthusiastic. So days go by and not too much happened, so we called another meeting. Still more people came, more enthusiasm, and more meetings. And there were a total of 9 meetings to get our board and our act together, and I really owe it all to Russ Horn, and I want him to stand up, and let's give him a big hand. Thank you, Russ. And I'm not even sure he likes contemporary music. I have great pleasure now in introducing to you one of the world's great annotators, and she lives right here in Dallas, and she's going to help you through what's going on in this wonderful, delightful work, although 75 years old, is as fresh today as it was in the Sitwell's living room 75 years ago. Lori Shulman.
The English composer, Sir William Walton, is best known to music lovers as the composer of the oratorio Belshazzar's Feast, the Crown Imperial March, and the film score to Henry V, for which he received an Academy Award nomination. This coming spring, his orchestral music will figure prominently on the Dallas Symphony's British Festival, as well it should. Along with Ralph Vaughan Williams and Benjamin Britten, Walton is certainly a titan among English composers of our century. His music holds an important and respected place in the repertoire. We don't think of him readily as a composer of irreverent satire prompting an uproar. The work we are hearing this evening, Facade, caused just such a brouhaha. Composed when Walton was still a teenager and first performed when he was only 20, Facade catapulted the young composer to instant notoriety, helping to launch a long and eventually distinguished career. Tonight's performance, however, is not solely about Walton. His co-star is the poet, Dame Edith Sitwell, whose brilliant verse was the catalyst for Walton's equally witty score. And the cast of characters extends well beyond the two of them. Our list of dramatis personae must also include Dame Edith's 2 brothers, Osbert and Sacheverell, and the young composer Constant Lambert, who was Walton's junior by 3 years. Lurking in the wings, although never making an overt appearance, are the Russian and Viennese composers Stravinsky and Schoenberg, whose music Walton obviously knew. In particular, Stravinsky's Pribautzky and L'Histoire du Soldat, and Schoenberg's Pierrot Lunaire clearly wielded powerful influences on Walton, although it must fairly be stated that Facade is one of a kind. At any rate, the backdrop for all these players is London in the early 1920s. The Great War has ended, the economy is rebounding, and the sheer joy of still being alive and around to enjoy life has made the English capital a gay place indeed. Euphoria is in the air, and the 20s have begun to roar. Let us begin with the Sitwells. There are 3 of them, as I said. Edith, the eldest, wrote the poems that Walton said. and ultimately she achieved the greatest renown of the trio. Her younger brother by 5 years, Osbert, eventually became 5th Baronet Sitwell. He was an eloquent man of letters himself, writing a series of prose memoirs that are considered a fine snapshot of a forgotten age. One of them, entitled Laughter in the Next Room, includes a marvelous chapter on the genesis of facade. Sacheverell Sitwell, 5 years Osbert's junior, and known as Saki to all of his friends, wrote extensively on art, architecture, and travel. He also published several volumes of poetry, which are, however, less highly regarded than those of his elder sister. Saki Sitwell also wrote respected biographies of Liszt, Mozart, and Scarlatti. Saki was the one who discovered William Walton when both were at Oxford. Viewed from our perspective in 1997, the Sitwell family were a caricature of Edwardian culture and values. Years later, Lady Susanna Walton recalled that her husband loved to tell this story. The 3 siblings, Edith, Osbert, and Sacheverell, were supposed to be the result of exceptional family planning on the part of their parent, Sir George, who spent months preparing for each act of procreation. He would read books of special beauty and artistic merit, recite poetry, and contemplate flowers, trees, and exotic colors for hours. Then, having eaten what he thought was the appropriate diet, he would announce to his wife, Lady Ida, "I am now ready." And the great act would be undertaken. Hence, Edith, Osbert, and Sacheverell. Under the circumstances, it is hardly surprising that Edith was considered eccentric. She knew from childhood that her intellectual future was brilliant. At the age of 4, one of her mother's friends asked her what would she be when she grew up. Precocious little Edith replied, "A genius," without hesitation. She was promptly removed from the drawing room and dispatched to bed in disgrace. As an adult, Edith Sitwell was a Gothic vision, both in her behavior and her appearance. All the Sitwells were tall, and at 6 feet, Edith was a veritable Amazon, especially for her generation. In attire, she favored heavy, brocaded dresses that underscored her theatrical demeanor. Her features were severe, dominated by haunting eyes and a long aquiline nose. She is said to have had beautiful hands, which she decorated with oversized rings of aquamarine and carnelian. She must have been a formidable presence. Artists and photographers were fascinated by her arresting appearance. Memorable portraits survive by Cecil Beaton, Siegfried Sassoon, Pavel Chelichev, Stella Bowen, Brandt, Horst, and others. Collectively, the Sitwells were crusaders against Philistinism in literature and the arts. Determined to buck the establishment, they drew around themselves a veritable salon. Their home at 2 Carlisle Square in Chelsea became a magnet for cultural and intellectual activity, attracting such luminaries as Siegfried Sassoon, Robert Graves, John Masefield, Ernest Ansermet, Ferruccio Busoni, Peter Warlock, Sir Thomas Beecham, Sergei Diaghilev, and later George Gershwin, as well as numerous members of British high society. Into this heady atmosphere, William Walton moved in 1920. Essentially adopted as a brother by the Sitwell clan, he shared quarters with them in Chelsea and elsewhere for more than 10 years. Edith Sitwell's original collection, entitled Facade, numbered 34 poems. A few of them appeared as early as June 1918, but she wrote most of them in 1920 and 21. She had become dismayed by the state of English poetry. Specifically, she found published verse devoid of rhythmic interest and described it as verbally flat. Sitwell had a musical ear and was an accomplished pianist. She believed that poetry was meant to be heard, to be read aloud. She was fascinated by speed and rhythm and by the onomatopoeic possibilities of the spoken word. In the Walton-Sitwell collaboration, according to Osbert Sitwell, Edith wished to exalt the speaking voice to the level of the instruments supporting it, to obtain an absolute balance between the volume of the music and the volume of the sound of the words. Neither music nor words were to be taken as a separate entity. In the preface to the published score, she explained, "The poems in Facade are abstract poems, that is, they are patterns in sound. They are, too, in many cases, virtuoso exercises in technique of an extreme difficulty, in the same sense as that in which certain studies by Franz Liszt are studies in transcendental technique in music." Walton was not particularly interested in poetry, but he responded to the inherent musicality of Edith's verses. And that brings us to the work on tonight's program. At this point, I would like to invite the musicians to join me on stage. We have a few musical examples. First, what does the title mean? Why facade? This French word, which has been absorbed into the English language, means front or face, as in the exterior of a building. Figuratively, it connotes appearance and has sometimes taken on the connotation of a sham, in the sense of a house of cards, or the appearance of something that is not what it appears to be, a deceptive outward aspect. It is this latter definition that delighted Edith Sitwell. According to her brother Osbert, the title came from a remark by a second-rate painter about Edith, which had been repeated to the siblings. Osbert wrote, "He had passed judgment on my sister in the words, 'Very clever, no doubt, but what is she but a facade?' This had greatly delighted us, since what can any poet hope for better than to constitute a facade for his poetry? It seemed an admirable summing up, and the very title for the sort of entertainment we wanted to present." There is also an apocryphal story that Walton and the Sitwells chose the title because they were so amused by the Sitwells' maid who fancied the word. Unfortunately, she did not know French pronunciation and orthography, which softens a C from a K to an S sound with the cedilla, the little hook extending beneath the C. Consequently, she pronounced facade with a K sound, which is, well, not very nice. In listening to our gifted narrators declaim facade, you are more likely to be struck by the wash of sound than by the actual sense of the words. Don't feel that you aren't getting it. It is impossible to catch all the details in this wonderful text, even after several hearings. Sitwell trips you up with unusual metaphors every few syllables. Her inherent delight in language and sound games is part of what makes Facade so much fun. In addition, this is a decidedly English piece. The Sitwell circle of friends were educated and well-traveled. The extensive allusions to Greek and Roman mythology would have been readily recognizable to her audience. Most of them are rather naughty. For example, Silenus, who figures in several poems, was said to be the son of Pan, who was half goat. He is usually depicted as a fat old man riding an ass because he is too drunk to walk. Another recurrent image in these poems is the satyr. These were minor Greek deities with the attributes of horses or goats, often depicted on Greek vases with erections. They were associated with lecherous men. Similarly, some of the language and imagery is directly linked to British culture in the 1920s. Sitwell refers to Negroes and Negresses in several poems. American political correctness had no place in 1920s Britain. Number 6, Tango Paso Doble, includes the lines, "So Joe put the luggage and the label into the pocket of Flo the kangaroo." The boxing kangaroo, Flo, was a popular animal music hall star of the era. We could not possibly know all these things the first time around.
Walton was exceedingly clever and timely in his settings. His music for both Tango Paso Doble and number 19, Popular Song, takes a direct swipe at popular songs of the day that Walton clearly found insipid. Other examples abound, and presently we will hear some of them. First, I would like to explain my references to Stravinsky, Schoenberg, and Constant Lambert. The connection between Walton's music and Stravinsky's Przyboutki and L'Histoire du Soldat will be evident to anyone who knows either of those works. The rhythmic narration of L'Histoire and the intimacy of the jazz-influenced chamber ensemble make for a striking and unusual comparison. Walton's connection to Schoenberg may be less evident, for the music you are about to hear is as tuneful and rollicking as Schoenberg can be cerebral and atonal. In fact, Walton was satirizing Schoenberg's landmark work, Pierrot Lunaire, for voice and chamber ensemble. Because Schoenberg was initially writing for an actress and not a singer, he devised what he called Sprechstimme, a cross between speech and song, with very definite rhythmic indications. Schoenberg's Pierrot is a collection of 21 poems specifically set forth in the score as 3x7. The work attained an international celebrity and was extremely controversial. It remains a bellwether for 20th century chamber music. For Facade, Walton selected 21 of Edith Sitwell's poems, grouping them as 7 sets of 3, thereby inverting the overall organizational principle of Pierrot Lunaire. There are other aspects of Facade that turn Pierrot on its end, some of which I am just beginning to notice as I become better acquainted with Facade myself. It won't matter if you don't get them all tonight, but it is important to know that Walton was taking a shot at Schoenberg. As for Constant Lambert, he was both Walton's friend and rival. When Osbert Sitwell originally approached Walton about writing music for Facade, Walton demurred, thinking perhaps the project wasn't for him. Sitwell casually remarked, "Oh, well, perhaps we'll ask Constant Lambert to do it since you're not going to." Years later, Walton said, "Of course, I couldn't let that happen." In fact, Lambert did collaborate in several capacities on Facade. He composed the first 11 measures of number 14, 4 in the Morning. Later, he became a distinguished interpreter of Facade, sharing the narrating duties with Dame Edith herself. In her published works, Popular Song, which is number 19 in the Walton, is dedicated to Constant Lambert. Constant Lambert also persuaded Walton to organize Facade in its current order of 7 groups of 3, as illustrated in the program insert. He did so specifically to mimic Schoenberg's Pierrot Lunaire. Perhaps Lambert's most lasting contribution, however, is that he introduced William Walton to jazz. The influence of jazz, albeit filtered through proper British eyes and ears, is apparent numerous places in Walton's score. The presence of saxophone in the instrumental ensemble and the use of wah-wah trumpet emphasize connections to jazz and to popular music. Facade was introduced at a private performance in the Sitwell's drawing room in 1922. Edith Sitwell narrated through a megaphone behind a screen. The official premiere took place at London's Aeolian Hall on June 12th, 1923, causing a scandal that made a celebrity of Walton almost overnight. Noel Coward walked out of the performance. Eventually, Walton extracted 2 orchestral suites from the music to Facade, and in 1931, Frederick Ashton adapted Facade as a very successful ballet. Several revisions of the chamber work, which we hear this evening, took place between the first performance and the definitive version from 1951. In various guises, Facade has become one of Walton's best-known compositions. If you scan the list in your insert of the poems that constitute Walton's Facade, you will notice that each group of 3 contains a dance. In order, we have Hornpipe, Tango Paso Doble, Tarantella, country dance, polka, valse, and foxtrot. Indeed, dancing and dance hall music are integral to the spirit and energy of Facade. As you listen to Facade, you will notice extreme contrasts of mood. Most of the numbers are either resolutely upbeat or rather melancholy. Almost all are whimsical, with Walton's music eloquently echoing the subtle games Edith Sitwell has played on our ears. The musical score, in fact, is what elevates the period piece elements of Facade into the realm of the classic. Both Sitwell and Walton knew the Gilbert and Sullivan operettas and expected that their audience would. Patter technique, as in I am the very model of a modern major general, plays an important part in Facade, almost as if Edith Sitwell foresaw 90s rap music 3/4 of a century in advance. Walton makes analogous musical allusions to his predecessors, sometimes by quoting from other composers, sometimes by mocking them. In number 17, Yodeling Song, poetic references to William Tell are accompanied by incongruous quotations from Rossini's William Tell Overture, including the Lone Ranger theme in very slow time and in 2 different keys. Listeners with keen ears will also catch a snippet of Stravinsky's Petrushka. In number 4, Long Steel Grass, Walton gets his digs in at contemporary Spanish music, invoking the style of Manuel de Falla and the Spanish music of the Frenchman Maurice Ravel, with castanets and Spanish rhythms. Appropriates folk music and pokes fun at British military tradition. A hornpipe is a dance performed by sailors. You won't have any trouble recognizing this one. Yet Facade is not a pastiche. Walton's voice may not have reached its full maturity in this music, but Facade is a brilliant and subtle work that matches Edith Sitwell's genius. We are going to take a 15-minute interval, during which you have time to read through the poems that are printed in your program before you hear and see Facade. We recommend that you do so in order to enhance your appreciation of the performance, which is visual and dramatic as well as musical. In order to encourage you to explore Sitwell's poetry, we have devised a contest. Those of you who use computers will notice quickly that many of Edith Sitwell's words would bollocks up a conventional spell check. Consequently, some typographical errors slipped past the proofreader's eyes. For the first person who correctly identifies the typos of normal English words in the program, we have a CD of Facade. English spellings such as honor, ending in O-U-R instead of O-R, do not count. Please bring your copy of the program to the person seated at the box office table outside the hall, with the typos circled, when you have finished reading the poems, and do hold on to that program for the second half. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoy the performance.
on. Watch the courses and the breakers, rocking horses, and the glaucous Lady Venus on the settee of the horsehair sea. With Tennis and the laurels were the glory of free. In a Boreal, the guys became Victoria. She knew Prince Albert from Memorial to the colours of the Florial, and the Boreal, the guys were floating on racing. Jupiter and London Venus, for whose sake from far came the fat and secret emperor from Zanzibar. When like golden bouquets lay for Asia, Africa, Catayone, before that shady lady by the fibroid Shah. Frankenstein as anyone, the bun came stood with some Marcus for the drinking of the car grapes blood. But the mind that tried to leave is by the 40 windows grief. Edge could I wither like a squirrel, like a gold star nut.
Queen Victoria City jumped upon the rocking horse, overweighs into the lorry, and this mix, of course, is as sharp as any, links and blacker, deeper than the drinks, and quite as hot as any hot dog without remorse. But the mink, said she, and the drinks you can see are hot as any hot dog, not the good for me. Jemima, Jocasta, Dinah, and Deb walked with their father, Sir Joshua Jebb, an Admiral Red, whose only notion, a butterfly poised on a pig-tailed ocean, is of the peruqued sea, whose swell breaks on the flowerless rocks of hell. Under the thin trees, Deb and Dinah, Jemima, Jocasta walked, and finer their black hair seemed, flat sleek to see, than the young leaves of the springing bohea. Their cheeks were like nutmeg flowers when swells the rain into foolish silver bells. They said, if the door you would only slam, or if Papa you would once say damn, instead of merely roaring a vast, or boldly invoking the nautical blast. We should now stand in the street of hell, watching siesta shutters that fell with a noise like amber softly sliding. Our moonlight glances through these gliding would see at her table, preened and set, Nerina sitting at her toilette, with eyelids closed, as soft as the breeze that flows from gold flowers on the incense trees.
The Admiral said you could never call. I assure you it would not do at all. She gets down from table without saying please, forgets her prayers and to cross her T's. In short, her scandalous reputation has shocked the whole of the hellish nation, and every turban chinoiserie with whom we should sip our black bohea would stretch out her simian fingers thin to stretch my tears like a mandarin. For hell is just as properly proper as Greenwich, or as Bath or Joppa.
What are you staring at, Mariner Man? Wrinkled as sea sand and old as the sea.
Those trains will run over their tails if they can, snorting and sporting like porpoises. Flee! The bird, the whirligig wheels of the train, as long as the world and as large again, running half the way over to Babylon down, through fields of clover to gay Troy town, a puffing the smoke, as grey as the curl on my forehead, as wrinkled as sands of the sea. But what can that matter to you, my girl, and what can that matter to me?
night is braying like an ass. See the tall Spanish jade, with hair black as nightshade, worn as a cockade. Flee! Her eyes gasconade, and her gowns parade, as stiff as a brigade. Tee-hee! The hard and graying light is ever black and white. It will take away the slight and free. Tinge of the mouth, roaring sound, voices forwards oozing round her flounces as they sweep the ground. Thee, to drum, and the drum, and the martial hornet come to make the people dumb. But we won't wait for slight for tonight, moonlight, water, milk white bright, to make clear the declaration of our Paphian vocation beside the castellated sea, where stalks il Capitanio, swaggered Braggadocio, sword and mustachio. He is green as a cassada, and his hair is a narada. To the jig, go kiss me harder, he called across the battlement as she heard our voices thin and shrill as the steely grasses thrill, or the sound of the Ionica when the Foca has the beak in the palace of the Queen Chinese. Through gilded trellises of the heat dolores, Inez, Manucha, Isabel, Nucha, mock time that flies. Lovely bird, will you stay and sing? Flirting your sheened wing, peck with your beak and cling to our balconies. They flirt their fans, flaunting. Oh, silence enchanting as music, then slanting their eyes. Like gilded or emerald grapes, they take Matthias capes, hiding their Syrian shapes. Sighs each lady, as wedding is done. Dance the quadrille from Belstars to Seville. Surprise the siesta, Dolores said. Through gilded trellises of the heat, spangles pent down through the tangles of bellflowers. Each dangles her castanets. Shutters fall while the heat mutters, with sounds like a mandolin or tinkled tambourine.
Ladies, when Don Pasquito arrived at the seaside, where the donkeys hide tide break, he saw the bandito Joe in a black cape, whose slack shade waved like the sea. He just rode between the snorting, read the silver like the sea, the lovely cheetah, sweet as foam, our artist notices that she will steal. Luggage like Babel, before the League of Nations grew, so Joe put the luggage in the neighbor, in the pocket of flow the kangaroo, through trees like rich hotels and road of dreamless life that she, carrying road and goading the road from an sea to a sea. Don Pasquito rode his own, with the luggage from heavy and large. He was following me from
Him where the leaves drip with sweet, but her word stung him like a mosquito. For what they hear, they repeat.
Jumbo asleep, grey leaves thick furred as his ears, keep conversations blurred. Thicker than height is the trumpeting water, Don Pasquito's bride and his youngest daughter. Watch the leaves, elephantine grey. What is it grieves in the torrid day? Is it the animal world that snores, harsh and inimical in sleepy pause? And why should the spined flowers red as a soldier make Don Pasquito seem still bolder?
In a room of the palace, black Mrs. Behemoth gave way to wrath and the mildest malice. Cried Mrs. Behemoth,
Come, court lady, doomed like a moth through palace rooms shady.
the candle flame seemed a yellow pumpkin, sharp as a scorpion. Nobody came. Only a bugbear air unkind, that bud-furred papoose, the young spring wind, blew out the candle. Where is it gone? To flat Coromandel, rolling on.
With the sun is a chapping the mix of the flattening lips of the forested heart. All the beauty of Mero and cucumber narrow and cities will join in the dance. With the sun is the flat of the flat, we flew to the girth and green and the narrow. The green is silent, will set between us the door and the cucumber narrow. See, like palaces hidden in the lake, they shake those greenhouses shut by your arrow. Narrow, the garden of seasons, the pieces like creatures for nearly the partnership arrow. There the lad is to the strawberry fruit to the lakeside root to the glade. Trampling and trampling berserkers, kachukas and circus back all the absent in the shade. Where are the hangers, the communist skate marks with gowns and a loop over bright yellow petticoats, acres of leather and feathers and feathers and stripes, bewildering many and more than that. There they hang, they towers and wines and showers, the dew and the dogskin with flowers. Pumpkin and marrow and cucumber narrow have grown for the spangled junars. Melons whose darkest days have for their farming waste, and disco honey and lake his darkest man. Apples honey to see youthful as Venus, a gorge and a ring of flex under the jewels fan. Said Queen Venus, some Venus will settle between us, the nymphs of obedience for soul. With my bow and my quiver each flex he will live, for I jump from his head and all.
I have swans of gold that will fly like honeybees. By the rivers of the sun I will feed my birds until they skip like those fleece-set lambs. The waterfalls and the rivers called rams. Then for all my darkness I shall be the peacefulness of a lovely tree, a tree wherein the golden birds are singing in the darkest branches. Oh.
Across the thick and the pastel snow, two people go. And do you remember when last we wandered this shore? Ah, no, for it is cold-hearted December. Dead the leaves that like asses' ears hung on the trees when last we wandered and squandered joy here. Now might ask your husband will listen for these whispers, these tears for joy's beer. And as they walk, they seem tall pagodas, and all the ropes let down from the cloud ring the hard, cold bell buds upon the trees, codas of overtones, ecstasies, grown for love's shroud.
That hobnailed goblin, a bob-tailed hob, said it is time I began to rub. For strawberries bob hobnob with the pearls of cream like the curls of the dairy girls, and flushed with the heat and fruitish ripe are the gowns of the maid who dance to the pipe. Chase a maid? She's afraid.
Go gather a bob-cherry kiss from a tree, but don't, I prithee, come bothering me,
She said as she fled.
The snouted satyrs clouted creep neath the chestnut trees, as thick as a dream.
So I went and leant where none but the doltish, coltish wind nuzzled my hand for what it could find as it neighed. I said, "Don't touch me, sir, don't touch me, I say. You'll tumble my strawberries into the hay. Those snow mounds of silver that be, the spring has sucked his sweetness from. I will bring with fair-haired pups and with apples, chill for the great god Pan's high altar. I'll spill not one." So in fun,
We rolled on the grass and began to run, chasing that gaudy Satyr the sun. Over the haycocks away we ran, crying, "Here be berries and sunburnt as pan."
But Silenus has seen us. He runs like the rough Satyr's son.
Come away. Dance the polka, said Mr. Wag like a bear, with my top hat and my whiskers that run-a-lot-a-trot the fair. With the weeds in chiming haycocks, I dance the polka there. Stand Venus's children in the gate flaps, maroon and berlin and snare. You see me fire my pistol, for the distance blue as my coat. Like Wellington, Byron, the Marquis of Bristol, buzz me greatly float. While the wheezy hurdy-gurdy and the marine wind blows me to the tune of any rooney sturdy over the sheets of the sea, and blank as his evening's backlit with Zinnia's candy tops chill. Miss Mrs. Marigold Scacklet as she gapes at the window still. When it dawned in the box of the sailor, blue as the decks of the sea, Nelson awoke, glowed like the clocks, then back to the dust-track key. And Robinson Crusoe, the bright and foxy beer, but he finds fresh isles and an egress and smiles of Poxy Topsy dear. As they actually dance the polka, said Mr. Wag like a bear, in my top hat and my whiskers, and the fair. Tra-la-la-la-la-la,
Climb the navy blue coast of Mr. Belleca, the Allegro Negro cocktail shaker. Why did the cock crow? Why am I lost down the endless road to infinity toasting? But tropical leaves whisper white as water, erase the wind in my flight down the promenade, edging the far-off sand is the foam of the sirens, metropole and grand. As I raced through the leaves as wild as water, my ghost flowed over a snake, and then I saw the long grass sweep where the guinea-fowl plumaged houses sleep, and the sweet dogs of curded milk watch the intact gown of silk in the roost room tall, where the governante whispers slightly fading andante. At the window then looked he, the living ghost of Mr. Belleca, the Allegro Negro cocktail shaker. And his flat
we've done. Now we have to raise sails upon the great Celine, dancing up the beast to the wind and marine.
Daisy and Lily, lazy and silly, walk by the shore of the one grassy sea, talking once more neath the swan-bosomed tree. Those castles to rels, those bustles where swells each foam bell the vermin, they roam and determine what fashions have been and what fashions will be, what tartan leaves born, what crinolines worn. Polices of tarletan bloom like the thin plaided leaves that the castle crags bloom, or velour doth throng on the water god's land. Her hair seemed gold tresses on the honey-cell sand, when the thickest gold spangles on deep water sea were like twanging guitar and like cold mandoline, and the nymphs of great caves with hair like gold waves of Venus wore tarlatine. Louise and Charlottine, Boreas daughters, and the nymphs of deep waters, the nymph Taglioni, Grisi, the Ondine, wear plaided Victoria and thin Clementine like the crinolined waterfalls. Wood nymphs wear bonnets, shawls elegant, parasols, floating on sea. The Amazons wear but serene of John Peel, beside the long lace of a deep falling hill. Through glades like a nun, they run from and shun the enormous gold-rayed rustling sun. And the nymphs of the mountains descend from the mountains like elegant willows under deep barouche pillows. In Kashmir, Alhada, Baresh, Isabel, like bells of bright water from clearest blue bell, are elegant, favoring bonnets of blue. The stars in their apiaries, silks in their aviaries, seeing them spangle these ambassadors fond from their aviaries cracked, with each long crack, the mantos spangled, mimic the waterfalls over the long and the light summer land. So Daisy and Lily, lazy and silly, walk by the shore of the one grassy sea, talking once more neath the swan-bosomed tree. Those castles to rels, those bustles morels, of the shade in their train follow. Ladies, how vain hollow! Gone is the sweet swallow. Gone, Philomel. Remind us of sweet birds singing like the jangling bells on rose trees ringing. Man must say farewells to parents now, and to William Tell and Mrs. Cow. Man must say farewells to storks and bets, and to roses, bells, and statuettes. Forests white and black in spring are blue with forget-me-nots, and to lovers true still the sweet bird begs and tries to cozen them by angels' eggs sold by the dozen. Gone are clouds like inns on the garden's brinks, and the mountain dins Ganymede sells drinks, while the days seem grey, and his heart of ice grey as chamois. All the edelweiss, and the mountain streams like cowbell sound, drowned in the waiter's dreams, who has gone beyond the forest waves, while his true and fond ones seek their graves. Are changed by the heat into negresses, though their fair hair shines there like gold hair comes Calliope, Io, Pomona, Antiope, Echo, and Clio. Then Lily O'Grady, silly and shady, sauntered along like a lazy lady beside the rich peacocks and browns, which was a Saturn, the governor of China, the doesn't have all. Parasol was a great gold swallow, the haycock cat, and she was a negress black as the shade, the time on the brightest lady laid. Then a satyr dog haired as trunks of trees began to flatter, began to tease. And she ran like the nymphs with golden foot that trampled the bubbly butter, to the thicker dew as bright as the mesh of dead Panope's golden flesh. Made from the music whence were born, Memphis came from the first hot morn, and ran to wake in the lake where the water ripples seemed to rake. And Charlottine, Adeline, around was bubbling Victorine, and the other fish expressed a wish for mastic mansels, gulls, swish and bright and slight as the roses, of buttercups and of roses, and buds of the wild lilies, they chasing us frisky as billies. The red reeks with a held satyr, can whine and teaser and flatter, but Lily O'Grady, silly and shady, in the deep shade as a lazy lady. Now Pomp is dead, Homer's red, Heliogabalus lost his head, and shade is on the brightest wing, and dust forbids the bird to sing.
corn has torn forlorn the sun-faced tree. Sit and sleep. Harry Wiggins, Willie, and Mary Wee. Sad Mary, what's the matter with cry? The huntsman in the lane, a comet son at our side. Oh, the nursery made Meg, with a leg like a peg. Chase the fed, the dreams like hens, and when they laid an egg in the sheepskin meadows where the silly king James would steer. Horse and hounds dancing from the shade of a tree, picked it up, squirted forth the nursery, said the morning. In the four towers plain, fell the chorus a plain, and whistling down the fell the grain of Noah rose again. And old old moon with the head like a hole, seemed to will their name, they would favor them, Meg would make free the beasts for the nursery teas. On Jack the Chimney hand she gave it underneath the trees, where the boiling water hissed. Like the goose's fed the daughter kissed. Hot and man and hot again, to put the blood and hot again, to miss the blood, again. With the waves of the sea,
Rocking and chopping the Barbie.
now when he comes to giving his rum up the rim of the sky, hippopotamus glum, and hunches and chances to bless with a venison belt or tennyson, crossing the bar lane with no vegetation, for pale reputation of temperance workers.
Oh, signed in memoriam.
With glory to drink up the glory of its feet.
Moving in classical meters.